So welcome everyone to this panel at Singapore Blockchain Week. Our topic for this session is Blockchain for Good, tackling global challenges pre and post pandemic. So we've got an incredible panel here for you today. And let's start off with the first part of our panel, which is, does blockchain actually do good? And people all around the world hear about blockchain and cryptocurrency. Many people think about Bitcoin, and oftentimes people categorize mining as wasteful and bad for the environment. It's not too widely known to the public, and I'm sure for the majority of our audience here, on how blockchain can really be used for good. And so let's kick things off with Mai. Can you tell us on how blockchain can be used for good?
Okay, sure. Thank you, Ali. And so first of all, I'm very honored to be here with amazing speakers. So thank you for having me. And yes, so, I will share about my opinion. And there are some use cases in crypto, use cases. And one, the cryptocurrency donation using the transparency of blockchain is the most popular use case. And fair trade is also high affinity with blockchain because of a high tamper-proof system. And the decentralization function of the public chain is used for the United Nations Global Climate Change related project and many digital ID related projects. And let me share about one example from Japan. The FAMI project is creating digital partnership certificate for same-sex couples that would be recognized by business enrolled in the program. And these certificates would confer rights to the same-sex partners of employees, such as parental leave and health insurance. Now, at least 17 companies, including major insurance companies and banks in Japan, have signed on already.
Fantastic. I think those are some interesting examples, and definitely helps shed some light on some of the use cases. I'm sure we'll cover more through this. But Farah, I'm curious on sort of your thought, given your background with government and international agencies. Do you see the sort of potential interest with blockchain, and what are some of the major hesitations they still have on the technology?
Thank you, Ali. I think any kind of change is tough. I think any kind of change that you're trying to introduce in an environment where everyone's extra sensitive about privacy and control is even tougher. Having said that, I think that the whole concept of DLT, the whole concept of a natural check and balance within the DLT, and also the introduction of a private chain has allowed the industry to kind of accept it a little bit more. So like with everything else in life, it's never true north or true right. There's never right or wrong. There's always a coming together in the middle, which is where we think financial services will end up. For me personally, I think that a lot of it is psychological. A lot of it is a generational gap. A lot of it is communication. A lot of it is about just the general philosophy and ethos of the business of blockchain and financial services. So like I've been to numerous conferences such as these where I get called this old legacy woman, someone from legacy finance, as opposed to someone who is, in an open source, more open source environment of DLT. So it's a philosophical question almost, but I think, and I hate to be the first one to mention the C word, which is COVID. I think it's a great opportunity. It's a horrible tragedy, obviously, and my heart goes out to everyone who suffered or had a loss from it. But it's a great opportunity. There's an old Chinese saying that says, there is in every opportunity, in every crisis, there's an opportunity. And I think if we don't really embrace this opportunity that COVID is giving us, then it will be lost. With regards to financial services specifically, I think that whole collapsing of processes within financial services and natural check and balances that you have that is needed by financial services by DLT will allow for more enhanced financial inclusion. And I think, again, the idea of financial inclusion, a social safety net for everyone, that goes above and beyond just financial services. It is a new way of doing business. It's a new way of thinking, of living that everyone has to embrace, including my cohorts in financial services.
All right, so thank you, Farah, for that response. I think it's really insightful to understand that change is tough and putting that into context. But let's move over to Matt. What are some of the misconceptions around blockchain and its applications for doing good in the world?
Well, I think the average person probably thinks like what you said, Bitcoin, and it's a mining thing. It's all about gambling. But the reality is, when you educate them, I got involved in this basically because music and art, obviously our business has kind of gone out the window. Digitized music isn't really making us any money anymore. So I got invited to be part of the Global Blockchain Business Council with Sandra Rowe at UCLA. So I'm the music and arts ambassador, and I'm looking for solutions. And the thing that really excites me about blockchain is all the collaborators can keep track of each other, right? So let's say there's 5 or 6 songwriters on a song. We can all check on the information when we need to get in, because any one person in that particular situation can change the data, right? On an ASCAP or a BMI or all the different publishing aspects, right? So that's how I started getting involved in it. And then I became a co-founder of a group called Sorum, which if you go to STHORM.io, we're in biotech, and in Brazil right now, the guys I got involved with are we're researching malaria and Zika virus for antibodies. And now we've moved into COVID-19, and we're in Sao Paulo. We have about 25 patients that we're studying, and we're doing a great blockchain biotech site that's called ViralCure. You can go on there, viralcure.org. It's all in Portuguese right now, but we're moving it to English. But all the projects I'm involved in are what I call blockchain impact. So everything has an impact part of the application. So there's always a give back. And with the music situation, what you say about a lot of people naysaying it is, the problem is there's people in positions that pay the bills from different societies. And with blockchain, we can alleviate a lot of middlemen, and we can get directly to the source. So that's what I'm really excited about. In Sorum, we have 6 different startups. We're working on something in blockchain with recycling, incentivizing people to recycle, paying them in crypto and tokenizing it. And I believe that this situation with COVID-19, we should have everything on a blockchain. All the data should be available, open source, and that would be especially antibodies. And that's what we're working on with ViralCure, so check that out. And misconceptions, people just don't understand that these different platforms of protocols, if you want to call them protocols, are nothing but some kind of gambling thing. But that's the common person. So we just have to educate, because it's the same as music. When music got digitized, people didn't understand it. So it just takes time, and I believe that in the near future, hopefully people will have a better understanding.
Absolutely, and I actually really like that in terms of incentivizing good behavior. But let's move over to John. As a seasoned executive, can you share your thoughts on why you believe blockchain can help solve global challenges?
Asia was the first in adapter of blockchain in the world. Asia always adapts faster than anything else. My background primarily has been investing in different types of opportunities. For example, Rising Star, one of our companies, has a JV with a company called CITIC, CITIC. That's the investment arm for the country of China. Then we have Checkmate Capital, which I'm a founder of, and you can buy the book Checkmate Investing, which is both in Chinese and English. And then we have BFD, which is based on a book and a diet that is in 260,000 stores in China, the products of it, which are meal replacement, because China has such a serious problem with type 2 diabetes. In 1980, only 1% of the people had type 2 diabetes. 2020 is 13%. That's not a good trend. That means 150 million people have it. China's a country that has to pay medical based on the country paying for it. And that's a big problem. This is going to grow faster. Our replacement meals are going to grow faster than anything else. Blockchain gives complete accountability across the board. And blockchain is really important. I agree with Matt 100%. It's not just about coins and things. It's about accountability. It's about real-time accountability. That's my answer.
Fantastic. So I think that was quite insightful, and it's been quite interesting to see, you know, all across Asia, I think multiple countries taking the lead, but especially China has been doing quite a lot in the blockchain space. And so to sort of wrap up this section before we move over to the next part of this discussion, where we'll move into discussing about COVID-19 and its impact. To summarize, you know, we learned, you know, from Farah that, you know, change is tough, and from Matt about incentivizing good behavior, which I think is quite fascinating and an interesting application. And also understanding from John about the China aspect and how they're sort of advancing and using blockchain. You know, we even have seen it in cities like Beijing, using it at a municipality level now. And with every crisis, there's an opportunity. And I think that was very well said. And so let's actually talk about that, the crisis that's ongoing. And so with COVID-19, of course, it has impacted, you know, the businesses and the lives of nearly everyone on the planet. And, you know, John, I'd like to go to you and just learning from, you know, your experience investing in numerous impact related fields. What are you keeping an eye on as the world adjusts to this new norm?
Anything to do with food, for sure. That's why we're in this type of stuff we're in. Also, we think the garbage industry and recycling becomes more and more interesting. AI and robotics becomes more interesting. It's interesting. It's almost like a test case right now where people are having to stay home because people are going to have to reinvent themselves anyway, because robots are going to take a lot of the jobs that are in the world. They're going to be gone. So the opportunity to stay home and not maybe lose your job, maybe work from home, whatever it is, that's the future. We didn't need this virus for that to happen. It just sped it up a little bit, is my opinion. So it's a real opportunity for everybody to really look at themselves. What can I do in the future? How can I impact in the world? And blockchain is the future for sure. Anything technology is the future for sure. As you know, I just mentioned AI and robotics, right?
Very interesting. And now you have it as the audience of some of those hot sectors that John's keeping an eye on. But Farah, are you seeing technology being used to combat, you know, the impact of COVID throughout Asia?
Yeah, I think, you know, your earlier comment about us adjusting, us in Asia. So for those watching, I'm based in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and the center of Asia really. And to be honest, it's about adaptability. So in a lot of instances in Asia specifically, we embrace technology very quickly. Because of the change, right? Change, we're open to change, and so with change, technology. So we embrace technology. So for example, this whole vectoring, right? In Kuala Lumpur, in a lot of places in Asia now, you have to scan your presence in everywhere, in every place that you are. So for example, if you enter a building, you scan a QR code, you register yourself. If there happens to be an infection in that building, you get automatically notified. So not only is that information, you're pushing in information, right? i.e. your temperature, stuff like that. But also if there happens to be an outbreak, you get that information back to you, right? In Malaysia, we had 2.5 months or so of lockdown. During that time, Malaysians came together in an unprecedented manner, like on the level of philanthropy. So we went out there and we helped really a lot of people. And the only reason, like masses, people like me, were able to do it was through technology, right? You'd be amazed at the number of WhatsApp groups, the number of just, you know, different apps that came about. Malaysia has a nationwide app that will allow tracking, so you know where you are. We've been very successful in fighting COVID-19 because of that, because we're willing to share and because we use the technology. But I just have one thing to say, and yeah, I agree with John about e-commerce, about this being pushed out really quick, so online groceries, stuff like that, that's beyond a doubt. But I think in Asia we have one problem, and the problem is we don't have enough devices, right? So it's great to have DLT, it's great to have a software, it's great that in China everyone has a device, but 600 million people in Asia or ASEAN, right? How many of them, the gap between the poor and the rich is astronomical, is crazy to even think. So really what has happened is that I personally think that there needs to be a coming together to ensure that everyone in Asia has a device, right? Imagine in the old days where people used to send out public service announcements via television. If you had no television or access to a television, you had no PSA. You wouldn't have that information. So whilst we focus on the DLT, the blockchain, the technology, we can't forget that a lot of people have no access to devices. So they have no access to this information. So I think it's a coming together of the soft and the hardware and making it accessible to everyone. And I think that's a challenge in Asia, but we've been very successful. We've been very successful thus far.
That was actually very insightful, Farah. And you talked also about, you know, the impact on the individual. But let's move sort of to the startups. Matt, what has been the impact on startups from a social angle from the pandemic?
Well, my group Sorum out of Brazil, you know, we've been working on Viral Cure, which is the biotech company studying antibodies for dengue, Zika, and I don't know if you know the statistic, but 390 million people are victims of dengue every year. And in malaria, 1 million people die a year. But we weren't able to get funded. We were working on getting funded. We have a great team of scientists and doctors. And as soon as COVID hit, the government funded us for 2.7 million, and then we got another 5 million on top of that to move into antibody testing on COVID-19, because all of a sudden our startup was, you know, exciting because of the antibody studies that we were doing on these other diseases. And the problem with dengue and Zika is it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. It's not a disease that these big companies like Merck and Pfizer really care about. They're tropical diseases, impoverished countries, mainly people that can't afford health care. Same thing, if you're watching what's happening in Brazil, you know, a lot of people in that country are suffering because of the healthcare system. So we believe at Viral Cure that everyone should be able to have healthcare in a situation like this, even to go get tested. In America, you know, the cost of getting tested is just too expensive. This should be a blockchain for the future of when the next disease comes, which they're out there. H1H5 is a serious killer, and there's more diseases out there that will be coming, because as the world and the earth warms, there's more mosquitoes, there's more diseases. So we're going to see this. And I truly believe that the solution is in blockchain. The data, the antibodies, the things that we can do to solve the future problems. And I fell into this by accident. I got into art and music, and all of a sudden I'm with a group of people that are working on biotech, and it's so exciting. But what happened to us is we got funded right away when this happened. So our startup's alive and well. And in the music and art world, everything's been happening on the virtual. Because in my regular job is being a musician. We're out of work till 2021. And I think people think we do it for fun. I actually do it for a living as well. So it's a business. And you know, billions of dollars are lost in the concert revenue system. Can we solve it with blockchain? Probably not. That's about a live audience. There's some other applications that can work inside a live auditorium that I'm working on, and music-related projects. But that's what happened to Viral Cure in this situation. And we got, we are.
No, thank you, Matt, for that insight. I mean, I think one of the key things is, you know, sort of understanding how this has sort of been like a divergence for startups, right? Some have been impacted very negatively, right? Especially if you're in the travel sector, but a lot of other sectors very negatively impacted. But there's sort of been that other side, which you fall into that path, where it's actually been almost like rocket fuel, and it's been very, very helpful to the business. And so I'm glad that you're part of that bucket.
Well, real quickly, my other application is called Artbit, and it's a live application. It's a camera that uses a token for an audience. So I need an audience, So that's nothing right now. We've gone quiet, until we can figure out how to get moving on it with a real, because we need an audience. We need people. So until that happens.
I can't wait to come to one of the shows and try it out.
Yeah.
But let's move over to Mai. So as someone who has been instrumental with the Binance charity, what has been the impact of COVID-19 on the charitable industry, and how has Binance charity been able to help?
Yeah, sure. The donation related to coronavirus were highly urgent, and sorry, and attention was paid to the speed of blockchain payment and the low fees and transparency of money flow. So for people in industries outside the blockchain, it was also fresh to be able to immediately complete P2P donations from donors to healthcare professionals or medical institutions. So Binance raised 431 BTC. It is more than $4 million, and already donated masks and other personal protective equipment for 24 countries. And they also made PPE tokens. So the charity is working on not only on the donation in the blockchain, but also the implementation on the blockchain. So now they have invented a PPE token with a 0.6% fee that will pay for the company to send auditors to countries to ensure the masks and picked up and then allocated to each hospital. So even this cost was transparency allocated on the blockchain with the token. They are working on technology for the people to see in the supply chain how they can expand the technology to solve issues. I think it is wonderful because this system allows us to save cost and spend as much money as donations.
That's fantastic, Mine. I think not only saving costs, but the work that you guys are doing are saving lives, right? And I think that at the end of the day is quite incredible. And so, with that, we heard about, the impact to individuals from COVID, charities, startups. But what I'm curious about, and what I'm sure our entire audience here is curious about, is the outlook post-COVID. And so none of us, of course, expected 2020 to turn out the way it has, but many of us are looking forward and, trying to ask the question, what does the world look like post-COVID-19? And so I'm going to ask this question first to John, and feel free for the other panelists to, add their thoughts to this. But what are the biggest challenges that you foresee in the aftermath of COVID-19 related to technology for good?
First of all, you got to consider in 2003, there was SARS. I was in China in 2003. Within a year, everything was completely normal. At that point, technology was not where it's at now. Technology is so much further along that we're going to actually see things permanently change because of the COVID-19 this time. Everything is going to be different. Everything can be handled differently. Blockchain's a big part of it. People's jobs can be a big part of it. People can work virtual right now. At that point in time, virtual was just an idea and nobody really did it. With the virtual world that we've seen during the COVID-19, that will continue. That saves companies money. And it's turned out that people are very responsible working virtual, which was always a challenge. If we had somebody virtual, would they be responsible? For example, with our company, we actually will have eventually 260,000 live salespeople. And those people virtually do work virtual because they're all commission oriented. 260,000 people. Think about keeping track of 260,000 people. Well, we don't have to pay rent for those 260,000 people. Stores in China let those people go in. Then we use JD.com on the back end, so we don't put anything in the store. We use technology to deliver the products to the people. Everything about our company is modern. Our scientist, which is Dr. Scott Conley, is the father of sports nutrition in the world. Dr. Prakash, who's with McGill University, is the father of probiotics. So we got two of the best doctors in the world to produce the products. That's why they're so good, and make it so people don't develop type 2 diabetes. Doesn't cure it, but it'll keep you from getting it. These things are exciting. Using technology, using virtual, the world is changing. You won't see as many people going back to office. The way you communicate with your people will be quite different. The way you educate and train your people, each one of our people, each one of our salespeople is essentially trained as a coach. Because think about it, you go to the gym, good intention, you stop in a week. You start a diet, good intention, you stop in 2 weeks. With our people, they're all trained through technology and using technology to keep each one of their individual customers on the diet permanently, change their eating habits, change their life, and it's all technology driven.
Wow, no, that's fantastic. That looks like a bright future. Matt, do you have any thoughts to add to that? And then we'll move over to a last question.
Yeah, I've been involved in so many of this new normal Zoom thing. I mean, you got to remember, Zoom only came out on the stock market last April at $60, and now it's like 275 a share or something. Who would have thought that something would go this crazy? But now it's the new normal. The word Zoom is like Uber or whatever. So music-wise, art-wise, I've done a ton of projects. The one you just saw, that was all virtual. And I'm looking for solutions to do this in real time, because the problem with the way that works is we have a little bit of latency going on. So we had to pre-record each part. Now I'm trying to find a solution that we can do music in real time, which isn't possible yet because we haven't got the proper connections. Each person has a little bit of a different internet connection, so it creates latency. But on top of that, there was an old platform that I was building like 6 years ago that was a virtual game. And now it's kind of come to the forefront, and we're working on that for education in music, dance, singing. It could be used in a lot of applications. So I think the future, this is great. This is just another amazing tool. I reconnected with a ton of people. I don't know if you've heard about the Richard White's Quarantunes things that have been going on here in Hollywood. I've been online with everyone from Bono to Elton John, Rod Stewart, everyone in one of these performing, and they raised $5 million online. It was incredible. So there's some positive things that have been happening to this horrible situation, and the people that are on this amazing panel are always thinking, what are we going to do next? So I'm honored to be here, and thanks for letting me be a part of this.
No, thanks so much. And so in the interest of time, this I think has been a very, very insightful discussion from our incredible panel. I can personally say I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience will have as well. I'm encouraged by the transformation of technology being used to make a positive social impact. Thank you again to our incredible panelists for making the time to share your insights.